This Soonerscoop.com video is streaming in crystal clear 4K resolution on YouTube thanks to Enjoy Vision in Oklahoma City. Don't miss a moment on or off the field. Make every day a highlight with LASIK at Enjoy Vision. Enjoy Vision. This is where Soonerscoop LASIK.
Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosovich, George Stoya here from the Soonerscoop.com studios on Campus Quarter. As you see there, the new studio closer and closer to getting underway. A happy Friday to you as OU Old Miss comes about less than 24 hours from now. Here we are back in the Soonerscoop.com studios. George Stoya, Eddie Radosovich, welcome in. Another Friday, another Around the Quarter here, taking your questions from the Crimson Quarter on the Soonerscoop.com and adding a little bit of levity to them. How are we, George?
Great. Football Friday.
Football Friday.
I'm excited for the big game. Feels like another massive one in Norman. Hopefully the rain clears out before kickoff tomorrow.
I'm glad
actually the weather's not been as bad as we thought today.
Well, it's just been a lot of rain and a lot of rain at one time.
But it's not raining right now.
It's not raining right now, as we saw there from Campus Quarter. I think it is supposed to rain starting back up on Friday evening. I know a lot of high school games were moved to Thursday night, and we'll see. I think there's going to be a little bit of rain in the morning. Hopefully it clears out by the time the game starts at 11 a.m., but excited for this one. There's massive implications going into Saturday. We've detailed here all week on the Soonerscoop.com YouTube channel. Obviously, the William and Lauren practice reports had the game day preview on Thursday with Sam Hutchins. Just get a little bit more info on Old Miss and looking forward to this one. Still feel relatively good about it.
Yeah, I mean, I picked Oklahoma. Okay. I think it's going to be a close game. I mean, you and I talked about it going over the SEC games this weekend. Every game's probably going to be pretty tight.
Yeah.
Ross Dellinger wrote about it, this morning, but there's more, one-score games than there's ever been, or at least in 20 years, I think it was the stat so far this season. It's on pace to be the most competitive season in college football in over 20 years, which is just insane. But also, you watch every week and you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
No doubt about it. We were sitting there, driving back from Columbia last weekend to Charlotte, and it was a good time to have a bunch of iPads in the car or phones or mobile apps, whatever you need. All right, we will start here before we get to the questions from the Crimson Quarter. Availability report on Thursday night and some good news for Oklahoma. There was an upgrade. It's offensive tackle Logan Howland has been upgraded to probable going into Saturday afternoon as you see him walking out on the field. Had the boot on his left foot out in Columbia, George.
Yeah, we'll see what's his pain tolerance at. What can he do? Is he going to be limited? We saw a few weeks ago when Jake Michaela, Febechi Wiwu, and Michael Fasusi were available. I think that was the Auburn game, and Michaela and Wiwu were able to play the entire game. Fasusi just wasn't 100%. So that's kind of my question: is Logan at a place where he can come in and actually play, or is he just like he's available if a Fasusi were to go down, or a Luke Baklenko, who I kind of think is still going to start at right tackle. He's healthy. He's played right tackle. He played it against Texas. I think they're going to roll with him, but it is nice to at least have one of Howland and obviously Simmons be available. Simmons was downgraded to doubtful on the injury report, as well as you've got Javonte Barnes and Gentry Williams. They're still questionable.
They are questionable, and we had a little bit of video of both of them as well. We'll throw in there as well. Keontae Lewis still listed as doubtful. Yep. Troy Everett, Jacob Sexton, Jake Taylor listed as out, so I don't expect that to change. Gentry Williams gets hurt in the first quarter on Saturday on that opening possession on the 4th and 1 run from South Carolina. I thought it was positive, though, walking out of there, or at least hearing Brent Venables talk about it on during the postgame. It certainly seemed like it could have been a lot worse. He's listed as questionable alongside Javonte Barnes, who it sounds like had that setback or injury during the pregame of OU Texas. We'll see what they're listed at tonight. Maybe they get upgraded, or maybe this is going to be something of a game-time decision for Gentry Williams and Javonte Barnes.
Yeah, it has the feeling of we're not going to see a ton of those guys tomorrow. Maybe Gentry. I think that Oklahoma's kind of found their 1-2 punch in the running back room, and Torrey Blaylock and Xavier Robinson. So I'm not sure we'd see Javonte even if he is available. And then Gentry, I think that it's one of those things where he's not going to be out the whole season. I think that's the good part. I know he hasn't been upgraded yet to being available, but the fact that he's even on there is questionable. I think tells you they expect him to be back at least relatively soon. I think it's going to be Eli Bowen and Cortland Guillory to start the game. We'll see. Maybe Gentry will kind of be available, sort of like the Logan Howland situation where, what's he at percent-wise? It would be great to have him, but I think they're going to probably roll with Bowen and Guillory.
We talked about it on the game day preview. Going to be super important for Oklahoma to tackle in space, obviously, coming up, and especially out there on the perimeter for some guys that are relatively still young. Talk about Cortland Guillory. He has played over the last couple weeks. Had a fantastic PBU against Texas that I think kind of got lost in the mix. Played well last week when he had the opportunities, and obviously Eli Bowen here getting going over the last couple of weeks since the Kent State game. All right, let's get into some of the questions, and why not just start at offensive tackle, where Derek Simmons is listed as doubtful, as well as the two Jakes, Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor, both out. OU Suitor 75, what's the real story on the Jakes, and will Simmons be a go? I think we can answer that latter one first. No, I don't think that Derek Simmons is going to be available tomorrow, and honestly, if it's a concussion issue, you just kind of have a human level here where you kind of get uncomfortable with, can he get back out there and play ever, not just this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to try. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about those discussions in terms of his long-term health, but the fact that he was questionable tells me that, at least on Wednesday he was questionable, downgraded to doubtful on Thursday, tells me that he's at least maybe trying to pass the concussion protocol to get back on the field. We'll have to see. I would bet it's after the Tennessee game, that if he were to come back, it'd be after maybe the bye week there before they go out to Alabama. In terms of the real story on the Jakes, I don't know if you're trying to find something other than they're hurt. I don't think it's like, a situation. I mean, I don't know, Eddie. I think that the Sexton injury is one that from my understanding, would be hard to play on. I think he's also still somebody that could play maybe in the back half of the season, or not the back half, but the last quarter.
With Jacob Sexton. I mean,
it's a knee injury, but it's not from what I understood, it was not a season-ending knee injury. That he could maybe play late in the year. Jake Taylor, I honestly think his body's just kind of breaking down. Yeah. I think he's suffered a lot of injuries to the point where I don't know if he's ever going to play football again. I don't really know what he's battling right now. But I just, at this point, I think Oklahoma can't really count on either one.
No doubt about it. Certainly a tough situation, what leads into the next question from the Crimson Corner, and talking about tackle depth. I want my $2. You're going to get it more and then some. How about that? With the lack of options at tackle currently, given the injuries to Howland and the Jakes, do we see Foje moving from guard or anyone else? I assume Akinkumi isn't SEC ready yet, George.
It's a good question. I don't know what the plan is this Saturday. I do know that Ryan Foje has taken some reps this week at right tackle, which would indicate that he may be an emergency, backup there.
An emergency to the emergency. This is, of course, before Logan Howland had been upgraded.
But at the same time, though, I don't know. Is it a situation where he's worked the reps at right tackle and Logan Howland's worked the reps at left tackle?
Sure.
Like if Fasusi were to go down, I don't really know how they would shuffle it. I think that they're preparing for Foje. If he had to go in at tackle, he can play it. He's had some reps there. I also think that you have a guy in Eddie Pierre-Louis who can play left or right. You could also, switch Fabechi over to left if you wanted, and play, Eddie Pierre-Louis at right. Like, you have some different combinations that you can do interiorly. So I think that they have kind of looked at, popping, Foje out there. And Daniel Akinkumi, I don't know if he's SEC ready. I think it's just like he's not a left tackle. Like, I don't think that's where his future is. So he's kind of been thrown into that spot the last few weeks because of the situation. And that's why it's so big that they have Howland, I guess, somewhat back.
You spoke on the depth there in the interior. A question about Eddie Pierre-Louis. Ben Arbuckle was asked about it this week as well. Eric 999, not sure if I missed it, but EPL rotated in a bit with Ozida. Anything to that moving forward, or are there reasons that's been explained?
I would push back on rotated in. I think he came in for like a few plays in the first half. I don't know if that was Ozida had something going on equipment-wise or injury-wise.
I know Carey said something in the war room like during the game. I checked my phone and I was like, I didn't even notice it.
I think it was the drive before halftime.
I think he ended up playing 12 snaps on Saturday against South Carolina.
A few of those came at the very end of the game when he came in. I don't know. We could see Eddie Pierre-Louis. I've heard he's been progressing, been playing well in practice. I think, was it Brent that was asked about him, or was it Arbuckle?
I thought it was Arbuckle.
Arbuckle got asked about him this week. So. And had high praise for him. So maybe he's somebody that you could see get in there. I think that they really like Ozida, though. Obviously, Fabechi's kind of the leader of that offensive line group right now with Troy Everett out. So I don't know if they're going to, especially with what's going on at tackle.
Sure.
I would advise against shuffling some of the interior guys right now. It feels like you kind of got a good thing going with those three.
Particularly with Heath, who I thought played a pretty damn good
Played
game
one of his
against
best
South
games.
Carolina, especially in the run game. All right, let's go just full-on injuries is the next question. Crimson football, thoughts on why we disproportionately suffer offensive line injuries compared to other teams? We don't see this many injured at other schools with strong defensive lines. Are they not practicing with knee braces and such? Is it under training, insufficient strength and conditioning? Why are we still having so many issues at this point and not correcting course? I would say, like, do we know that? Do we know that other teams aren't having these problems? I guess you could look through the SEC availability reports.
South Carolina's having these problems.
I understand the frustration, though, I guess, at the end of the day.
And look, if we had the answer, Brent Venables would probably hire us to be their football trainer and try and get these guys.
Well, I don't know if
there.
I'd ever be hired to be any type of trainer, George.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't know the answer, but I understand where you're coming from. I think part of the problem is you've got a handful of guys that have just shown you throughout their career here that they can't stay healthy. I mean, and it's no fault of their own, but guys like Troy Everett, he hasn't been able to play an entire season. Jacob Sexton, going back to the first play he ever played at Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl against Florida State, tore his ACL, and he's just never been the same.
Some bad luck in there as well.
Jake
just
Taylor,
straight up.
Jake Taylor's not been healthy. So those are your three guys that are been out every single week. They haven't been healthy their entire careers. And then I think other guys have just kind of got, the sprained ankle thing was weird earlier this year where they're all dealing with sprained
kind of
ankles.
identified that coming out of the Temple game. When you don't move people off the line of scrimmage, you're going to get rolled up on.
So I think that's part of the issue. But, I don't know. And I don't want to sit here and question like, oh, these guys aren't trying to get back. I don't know. I'm not there every single day, but it's certainly an issue and something that if it continues, I mean, I'll probably have to ask Brent about it and take that bullet.
Don't do that. We want to keep you around for the next couple of weeks. Let us tell you about our good friends over at Lucy, 100% pure nicotine, always tobacco-free. Also have the Lucy Breakers, which are a fun surprise, a nicotine pouch with each capsule holding or can be broken open to release extra flavor and hydration. You can set yourself up with a subscription. We do here at SooterScoop.com and have Lucy delivered straight to your door. All you have to do, as you see on the bottom third of the screen there, lucy.co/SooterScoop. Use the promo code SooterScoop for 20% off your order. Lucy has a 30-day refund policy if you change your mind. Plenty of different various sizes that you can go with, different milligram sizes, as well as different flavors, whether it be the espresso.
Nice. Good job.
It's been a couple weeks since I've had a stumble back. Mint, mango, berry citrus, apple cider, apple ice. Plenty of options to choose from. All you got to do is go to lucy.co/SooterScoop. Use the promo code SooterScoop for 20% off. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every order is age verified. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical, George. Thank you to our good friends over at Lucy. Let's get back into some of the questions from the Crimson Quarter. And it's never too early to be talking portal. It's not the end, which kind of makes me think that you probably think it is the end. How many rumors and rumblings are you already hearing about what players likely hitting the portal at the end of the season? Dolby obviously is one. We talked about Kendall Dolby on the show this week. Brent Venables also talked about it as well. Taylor Tatum, offensive line, wide receiver room, Whit Neubauer, Michael Hawkins. Also, how many of these players are we expecting Nagy to boot himself? That's a question that is unanswerable at this point.
I mean, I hate these questions just because it's like, what do you want us to do? Speculate on guys that might hit the portal? I personally haven't heard a ton of, scuttlebutt about guys saying, oh, I'm going to enter the portal after the season. I think you can make your assumptions on some of the stuff that's happened. I think Kendall Dolby is a rightful assumption considering the situation he's in. Javonte Barnes, obviously, is another one that you could look at and say he could jump in the portal. Taylor Tatum, to your point. I wonder what does his baseball career look like and how does that factor in his decision? I can't say I've heard anything about the wide receiver room. I think everybody wants to hear something about wide receivers, and it's like I haven't heard anybody being upset about wanting to. I'm sure there'll be a couple departures. I'm sure there's going to be a couple departures everywhere, but I haven't personally heard anything. Quarterbacks, Whit Neubauer and Michael Hawkins, I think that totally depends on what John Mateer decides to do. If John Mateer decides to come back for another year, then yeah, I would probably anticipate some of those guys to jump in the portal and look for opportunities where they can start. So I think a lot of it is TBD at this point, Eddie, and let's see how these final few games play out.
It might be easier to identify guys that would be already in the portal or looking to go into the portal, and the perfect example of that, Noah McKinney from Oklahoma State, an offensive lineman that started his career at UNLV, played 25 games, played 5 games for Oklahoma State. Obviously, Mike Gundy gets fired. He enters the portal. It was reported by Pete Nakos on, was it Thursday evening?
Yeah, yesterday.
That Oklahoma is certainly in the mix.
And I actually spoke to his agency last night as well, and they're working to set up some sort of visit. I don't know how that works with OSU playing right now, and maybe that doesn't happen until after the season's over, but the interest is very real there.
1 year of eligibility left for the 6'4", 330-pound offensive guard that had the 4th best blocking grade among Big 12 guards this season. So we'll see on that. Obviously, Oklahoma could add a little bit of depth inside. Let's talk about Jim Nagy. Jim Nagy just on Fall Feinbaum on Friday afternoon. Horseradish. Do you like horseradish sauce?
No.
Have you ever had horseradish sauce?
I have. I'm just more of a honey mustard or ranch type of guy.
What about on the fish?
The fish?
Yeah, what about on fish?
Nope.
Don't you put that on fish? I'm not a horseradish guy either. Is Nagy going to be cutthroat about offensive line who are injured for 2 or 3 years and getting those roster spots freed up for other contributors? Are they screening future linemen from the portal for concussions? If guys can't be reliable contributors in year 3 in the program, can we please help them land at SMU? I would say
some of these questions, man.
First off, I don't think that I don't think that they could have foreseen that Derek Simmons was going to get a bunch of concussions in Norman.
No, and he did have a history at Western Carolina, but I that's not something that should keep you from I think taking him. He's also played extremely well when he's been healthy. In terms of other guys that have had injuries, I think they're going to be like, hey, if you can't stay healthy, you might look elsewhere.
In short, I would say I think that Jim Nagy's going to try to do what's best for the program and get the best players possible.
Yeah, and also let's be clear, Jim Nagy didn't make those decisions this past year, right? This is kind of his. I mean, he had the spring portal, but he had just started. So this will be the first time that we kind of see what he does, and so that's why it's hard to answer some of these and be like, "Is Jim Nagy going to do this?" We don't know. We've never seen him do this before. Sure. He's never done this before, but I think that it's kind of, again, I hate to keep saying this, but it's a wait and see. We don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you that they're going to be very aggressive in the portal, and I think they're going to be very aggressive in how they manage this roster, whether it's retaining guys or saying, hey, you might look for an opportunity elsewhere.
Maybe we should just start making stuff up and putting it out on YouTube.
I think that's what the people want.
That's one way to grow a YouTube channel. You're going to love this then. Let's jump back into the portal. Moneyball, what are the positions you guys think you should look at in the portal? This might be a little bit easier to identify.
I like this. This is a good question. I think that they need to look offensive line. I think especially at tackle, they have to go and at least get some depth there. I think running back still is a position, especially because I think you're going to lose several guys. I think maybe the only returners there might be Blaylock and Robinson, which you like those two, but you need some more there. I still think you could go out and get a wide receiver depending on what does Satania end up doing. You're going to lose Burks. Gibson should be back, but you probably want a receiver. I think defensively it's a little bit more interesting because I think that they should probably go after a defensive end. You're going to lose R. Mason Thomas and Marvin Jones Jr., and you love Taylor Wine, you love Danny Okoye, PJ Adebawore, but if you can add a vet guy there.
Yeah, somebody like a Marvin Jones Jr.
Yeah, that would be a great spot.
What about linebacker?
Linebacker, it depends, right? Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie technically have another year. They could both come back. Owen Heineke has another year. Samuel Masigo has another year. So all of those guys could come back. Maybe you lose one of those guys you'd want to add there. I'm trying to think. Safety, maybe. Safety's a spot. Cheetah.
And it also depends on the flip side of it, of what's out there. If there's somebody out there that you really think that you have some connection with, somebody that you could bring in and be a day one starter, of course you're going to take a jump.
I think that a good example of that is like a Kendall Daniels. I'm not so sure Oklahoma was looking for a Cheetah player in the portal, and then when Kendall Daniels came available, obviously right down the road, an Oklahoma kid, it was like a no-brainer. So I could definitely see a couple spots on defense being like that.
As of late, it seems like the Caden Helms era at tight end has really kind of taken off a little bit. Yeah, and tight end would be a position.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't name that. That was probably number one.
Maybe that was the most obvious, and we just overpassed it. Bob Scoops, I like the name. Is Caden Helms now a vital part of OU's run blocking, or was last week an outlier? Feels like he was on the field for every good run, and he did play well, George.
I do think, I don't know if he's a vital part. I do think he's going to play more and more because he does give them something that they just haven't had from that tight end spot. And that's a little bit more consistency in run blocking. Now, he's also had some moments this year, the Texas game, where he wasn't great. So it kind of depends on the matchup. I actually like their matchup this week in terms of some of the defensive ends they're going to be facing. This isn't the same group that Oklahoma faced a year ago at Ole Miss in terms of some of the edge rushers. I actually think that they can block some of these guys. So I do think you're going to see some of that this week, but I think you're going to see more and more of Caden Helms. I think he's probably their best run blocking tight end right now.
Just on some of the coverage coming in from the national media headed into Saturday, this certainly feels like a college football elimination type of game for both Ole Miss and Oklahoma. Matchell, the win last week seems like a big win for BV's job, showing his team can go on the road, go get a road win after an emotional game, talking about the Texas game, something they've struggled with in past seasons, in a way turning a corner as a program. Would you agree? On a smaller scale, this week seems like a big game for this season, no shit, and a game in which they can firmly announce themselves as a legit playoff contender with a victory at home versus a top 10 team, which is unusual, hasn't really happened a whole lot over the last decade, just the fifth top 10 game, almost a de facto playoff elimination game for the loser. Would you agree? I would say yes and yes.
Yeah, I would agree with both. I still think if OU loses this weekend, there's going to be a portion of the fan base that wants Brent fired or is going to want several other coaches fired.
Just waiting on that moment for him to take a step back.
I think that that's still going to happen, even if they do lose a close game where Ole Miss maybe just makes a few extra plays. I also want to put, I understand the elimination game theory, and a lot of people have said that. I would push back on it just a tad, because if OU lost this game, obviously you're in a tough spot. But if you turn around and you go beat Tennessee on the road, you're right back where you're supposed to be. And you start looking at that Tennessee game, and I'm not saying I'd pick Oklahoma right now. I probably wouldn't pick Oklahoma in that game. I do think it's a lot more winnable than it looked maybe a few weeks ago. So I do think that there's still opportunity. If OU were to lose this game, I wouldn't say they were eliminated from the playoff. If Ole Miss loses this game, you look at their schedule and their resume at the end of the year, I do think this would be a tremendous loss for them in terms of their playoff hopes, because their resume just won't look as good. They don't play. I think Oklahoma's maybe the last ranked team they play, at least right now. The Mississippi State game at the end of the year would be a nice win for them, but probably not a ranked win. So I think that this feels like an elimination game for Ole Miss, and it's sort of kind of one for Oklahoma.
Sure.
But Oklahoma has so many big games left that if they were to somehow bounce back, beat Tennessee, and then win their last two home games, they're still right there in the playoff hunt.
I know there's some people coming out of Oxford that have talked about this game as maybe the most significant game in the Lane Kiffin era, for all the obvious reasons. But when you start looking at the Florida job, if they were to win, they're probably going to run the table the rest of the way. All of a sudden, you're 11-1. You're probably hosting.
Yeah.
Possibly a playoff game down in
the
Oxford,
SEC championship game.
And would Florida have to move on because they wouldn't want to wait for somebody like Lane Kiffin? I don't know. It's a very interesting conversation that is being had with the folks in Oxford. Certainly Oklahoma fans hope that is a conversation that is needed to be had by the day's end on Saturday. Let's talk Brent Venables' big games. Oh boy, this is a paragraph. Wishbone Willie. BV has one of the biggest. I can't read today. This is a problem.
I can read this.
Okay, go ahead.
BV has one of the longest, biggest games of his career games ever. This is like something coaching version of Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak. So how many more games do you think he can go before the biggest game of his career streak ends?
Not this season.
Yeah, because if you lose versus Ole Miss, Tennessee is huge because next week is at Bama, and you want to avoid 3 losses in a row. But if you win, it's kind of the same deal because it's another biggest game of his career, because if you beat Tennessee, now you're set for a huge matchup versus Bama, which will obviously be the biggest game of his career. Basically, the streak is continuing at least 5 more games no matter what happens, right? Guess this is life in the SEC. Yeah,
Wishbone Willie hit it on the nail on the final sentence. Guess this is life in the SEC. And yes, it's going to continue. And Oklahoma fans, you want that to continue.
Well, and the reason it's not just the opponents that make these the biggest game of Brent's. It's what he's coaching for this year, which is technically his job, right? It's like what we talked about all offseason. You got to get to so many wins to keep your job and get the program going back in the right direction. It's not so much about like Oklahoma. Yes, it's a huge game because they play number 8 Ole Miss, and it makes it the biggest game. If they were playing Iowa State this week, it would still be the biggest game. It's like you have to take care of business.
That would just be a can't lose.
Can't lose. Yeah, exactly. It's the way you want to phrase it, but the last 5 games are the biggest games of Brent's career. That's just going to get bigger even if you lose. Win or lose, the next one's always going to be huge, and that's just the way the schedule played out, and also all the stuff that happened in the years prior that set this up.
It would be, well, never mind. I was going to say something, and I will pull back on it, I guess. Let's just go to losing assistants is the title here. Blake Griffin, 32. What are the chances that coaches like Bates, Hall, Chavis would consider leaving OU for a defensive coordinator position elsewhere? Do you think any of them would actually move on from BV?
It's a good question.
That's a different change of speed that I kind of like.
And it's something that I've wondered about because I do think that some of those guys – will have those opportunities at some point. And especially if you continue to do what you're doing this year defensively, like teams are going to come after them. I don't know. I don't think – I think it would have to be a really good job. Yeah. Like another SEC, job in terms of being a defensive coordinator at, if Alabama called them up or, Georgia, something like that for them to leave. Like I don't think they would leave for like the – defensive coordinator job at Kentucky.
Sure.
That's the way that I would view it. But
it kind of seems like
these guys are very
with what
loyal.
They're building too on that side of the ball specifically.
Yeah, I would say all 3 of those guys, Brandon Hall, Todd Bates, and Miguel Chavis, are incredibly loyal to Brent Venables. I mean, Todd Bates has had several opportunities since he's come to Norman to leave. Sure. I mean, major programs have come after him. NFL teams have come after him. And he's stayed in Norman because he believes in Brent Venables. So I would lean towards no, but again, it all depends on what positions I guess come open.
I would also add too that we might be a year away from this still, but it kind of seems like if Miguel Chavis' name all of a sudden came up for a head coaching job or something, I'm just speculating. Yeah. Would he turn to somebody like a Todd Bates and say, come be my right-hand guy. We're close. I need you to come with me. That would be interesting to me. I don't know what that decision would ultimately be, but again, I think that we're probably still maybe a year away from that actually coming to fruition. All right, let's talk Grayson Halton. Speaking of defensive tackles, Annapolis Sooner. Shout out to the midshipmen, undefeated so far this year. I think OU fans should cheer for Navy against Notre Dame in a couple weeks. I'm starting to think that Grayson Halton's pro comp is Ed Oliver, similar size, similar speed, and I think he will have a pro career. What say you? I know he probably won't wear a jacket on the sidelines like Ed Oliver did in his final game down at Houston.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. It was like it was cold, but it was like 40 degrees, and he's over there in a like a winter parka, I believe.
Ed Oliver was really good. I want to say, was he a first-round pick?
Yeah.
I don't think Grayson I don't know if Grayson is a first-round pick type of player. And Ed Oliver also, was he did he make an All-Pro or Pro Bowl? He's made a couple Pro Bowls, right?
Ed Oliver has not made a Pro Bowl yet, but he is off to his best season NFL-wise this year, I believe.
He's a really good NFL player. I'm surprised he didn't make a Pro Bowl. I think I understand where they're coming from, size and stuff. Man, Ed's been in the league a long time, though, too.
A lot longer than I remember. Do you remember what year he was drafted?
Well, he played for Houston in 2016 against Oklahoma, so 2018?
First round, 2019.
2019. Yeah. So if Grayson does that, that'd be a heck of an NFL career because I think Ed Oliver is really, really good.
Just to kind of put it into perspective, too, he was selected. He won the Outland Trophy as a sophomore in 2017.
Yeah.
I think that we have been very adamant and clear. Grayson Halton has been fantastic this year.
And I think he'll have an NFL career. Like, I think he'll play a while in the NFL. I just don't know if he'll have maybe the success or longevity that Ed Oliver will.
No doubt about it. All right, let's continue on. A couple more questions to get into. We were looking at the schedule this weekend. It's not just a necessarily great matchup-wise, just overall in college football. OU FRK 11, bigger matchup. OU defense versus Ole Miss offense, which you've wrote about this week with Brent Venables and Lane Kiffin, or Is it OU's offensive line versus Ole Miss's defensive line, trying to get that run game continuing from what they did a week ago at Williams-Brice Stadium?
I mean, I think they're both huge. I think the O-line, for me, is maybe the bigger one just because of what's going on at right tackle. You'd feel a lot better if Derek Simmons was the guy this week because I thought he played really well and it was the best game the offensive line had. So that, to me, is what I'll be watching. But if this OU defense can stop or just slow down this Ole Miss offense, then I really like Oklahoma's chances, and that's ultimately why I'm picking OU to win the game. Is I just trust OU's defense to get the necessary stops or turnovers or whatever to allow Oklahoma to win this game.
By the way, I want to correct something. Ed Oliver has made a Pro Bowl team. And in fact, I think he's made multiple.
Okay, I was about to say I was very shocked when you said that.
I don't have it in front of me, and I am not a Ed Oliver historian, so I don't know how many, but he has made a couple. All right, we will continue on. Let's talk weather. We need our boy Willie in here. E-Trip, how do you think the possible weather will, 1, impact the crowd noise, 2, Oklahoma's game, 3, Ole Miss's game? I don't think it's going to impact the crowd at all. I think this is a town that
Unless
is very
you guys
prepared.
are a bunch of wussies out there and don't show up because there's a little bit of rain.
That's true.
I mean, in the student section, everybody's got to show up, but I don't think it'll affect it either. I think this crowd's going to be fired up. I think that they'll be there and they'll be loud. Oklahoma's game, I think that they're gonna try and run the football, and they should, because I know that they've struggled at it most of this year. But you built something last week, you have some confidence, and that's the one thing this Ole Miss defense just isn't very good at. They haven't been great at tackling in space. They haven't. I think they're 99th in rush defense this year. I think even their secondary is a little bit vulnerable. But I think Oklahoma can find some success on the ground, so maybe that helps them. And then Ole Miss's game, I think it maybe hurts them because that's what they're really good at, is throwing the ball down the field in their passing game. So if it's really raining hard, then maybe they try to run. They've been really successful running the football too, but against this Oklahoma defensive line, I like Oklahoma's odds. So I would say the rain favors OU, but at the same time, who knows? It could turn into an S show real quick with a lot of rain. I also don't think it's going to be raining during the game.
I was going to say, if the rain holds off, I kind of talked myself into thinking too that as much as we've talked about Trinidad Chambliss, this is probably going to be one of his better or bigger competitions just in terms of what Oklahoma's doing defensively. If he comes out not ready for it, maybe they go Austin Simmons and they try to throw down the field a little bit more than I think maybe at the beginning of the game.
I think we're going to see Austin Simmons on Saturday. It's just how much are we going to see him?
3 Pro Bowls for Ed Oliver too.
There you go.
I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that, and I'm going to send a
so he's been in the league.
Bouquet
he's
to
been in the league.
The Oliver family.
Is this 7 years?
I think that's right. Yeah,
7 years. So he's made a Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
half of his career. Pretty good.
Pretty damn good. Buffalo has a big game coming up this weekend at Carolina. All right, OU. They haven't done something so far this season. They haven't done it when they've been in the SEC. Tiger Woods 86. Will this finally be the week we score 30+ points against a P4 team for the first time since 2023?
I think you and I both predicted
we did.
Too.
I put 31.
I put 30.
And it was just because I didn't want to go 28-23.
Yeah. I think this is probably their best shot the rest of the year. How about that?
That's fair.
I think this is, even though, Tennessee's given up some points, I just think on the road that'll be really difficult to do. OU could have done it last week, I feel like. They kind of, let that clock run out, and they also didn't have a ton of possessions there late in the game. I think they could have scored if they wanted to against South Carolina, but I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say they will score 30 this Saturday, and if they score 30, if they score 30 the rest of the year, that might be enough to win every game.
Feel pretty good about it,
yeah.
Especially going into tomorrow, although I do think it's going to be a little bit higher scoring than maybe we expect just because of the wet conditions. You think, okay, these teams are going to have trouble moving the ball. All of a sudden,
what's the over-under?
You hit a couple of passes over the top. I am not sure, actually.
I would assume 50 somewhere.
Yeah, we'll get it before we get out of here. Last but not least, let's talk stadium renovation. Bento 60 with West Side renovation in mind. Every commitment that we've gotten this year who attended a game mentioned game atmosphere as one of the influences on their decision to come to OU. Do you all get the sense that the OU admin will take this into account and not turn Gaylord Family Oakland Memorial Stadium into an NFL vibe corporate field box seat morgue?
I don't think they're planning to turn that into an NFL vibe corporate field box seat morgue. I think they're planning on renovating the press box and maybe adding a few more suites up there. on that west side. But I think what makes the atmosphere is the fans that are there and that are, passionate and stuff. I don't think that's going to go anywhere just because they, make the west side look a little nicer.
They have a really nice, suite setup at Tiger Stadium, as we saw last year in Baton Rouge. I don't think those people are going to have a problem yelling at Brian Kelly if things go bad.
No, I wouldn't worry about that with the renovations.
They might take some seats out, though, if they want to expand things down on the sidelines. I know that they put in the padding on the north wall, which looks good. It is what it is. I like the brick, but that's neither here nor there. Got to keep guys like Keontez Lewis on the field.
Did you get that over?
Over under 52.5 going into tomorrow. The line is now up to -5.5.
Wow. Well, I mean, Vegas likes Oklahoma. I think they're also, playing toward
how much of the
home game.
How much of the stuff have you bought into this week, just in terms of talking about teams that are going on the road for the second consecutive weekend in the SEC? I know our buddy Zach Barnett from Football Scoop had some pretty good numbers on that this week.
Yeah, teams have not fared well. And Ole Miss, you look at some of the teams that are going, like Texas, they're on the road, at Kentucky and then at Mississippi State. Well, I get it. It's not easy, but it sure is a heck of a lot easier than at Georgia and at Oklahoma.
Sure.
That what Ole Miss is doing. So, I do think that plays a factor in it. I also think, though, that sometimes, and we saw it last week with Oklahoma, sometimes going on the road is what a team needs when they don't play well. I'm sure Ole Miss would love to be home this weekend against Oklahoma, but at the same time, you kind of take that us against the world type of mentality, and you go in there and maybe you play a little bit better football, and kind of come together. So I think it goes both ways, but I mean, it's brutal. Ole Miss having to go like this route is certainly tough. And it I would assume favors Oklahoma.
No doubt about it. All right, that's going to do it for this week's Around the Quarter. We will be back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel after the game on Saturday night for an instant reaction. We'll also catch up with Kerry Murdoch on the Eskridge Lexus postgame podcast, and we'll see. Massive game here in Norman on Saturday. Obviously, the things to come in the month of November is going to be a lot of fun to follow and cover. There is Campus Corner getting a little bit busier. A lot more Ole Miss fans starting to mill about.
It's an easy drive
on a Friday afternoon, and that's why they are one of the, the pod regional rivalries, because when you think OU football rivalries, everybody thinks Ole Miss. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.